All right. Hey, everybody. It's Lee here with my friend Tiffany from Hope, Joy, in Christ, and Jessica will be joining us soon. We're super excited to have Tiffany here today to be able to just talk with us, chat with us a little bit about marriage during stressful times, since we're likely all there. And if not, we will be, because that's just life, right? And so we just wanted to bring you some encouragement today in that. Thank you for coming, Tiffany. It's so good to have you here.
Yeah, well, I always love getting to chat with you, so amazing to have like a legitimate reason to see your
Right.
face and chat.
I know,
And
it's so
Jessica too,
fun.
and see fun.
So
Yeah.
fun. I'm just gonna pop over really quick and make sure that we are showing up here in the Facebook group, which we are. So just a note for anybody watching, that if you want to, there's a link in there that says click on this link to give StreamYard permission for us to see you, to see your name on Facebook. Otherwise, you can certainly comment, but we won't be able to see who you are. So if you could do that, that would be awesome. But yeah, thanks for being here, Tiffany. Marriage, right? Stressful times. We're likely all in. I was thinking that it seems like there's three different groups of people that we're talking to. There's people that are pretty much the same as where they have been, but all of everything that's going on has caused extra stress within marriage. There's people that maybe are trying to keep some kind of semblance of their old schedules, lives. Maybe they're working some things like that, but then all of this is added stress, or maybe kids home for the first time, or things like that. And then there's people whose lives have been completely turned upside down. Have you found that as well? I think that's kind of where I've landed with all of this.
Yeah, so it's so interesting, like thinking about, at any given time in our world we live in, marriages kind of fall into two categories, like the marriages who are doing okay and the marriages who are not, right? Like they have like this 50% divorce rate. So I always just like to think of, like, out of every two women that I'm talking to, one of them's probably okay, and one of them is probably secretly struggling, like on the verge of ready to file papers. And so that's kind of how I've seen this play out, especially within the groups where I coach and talk with women on their marriages, is like they were either fine, and this has really kind of given them like more time together, and they're getting projects done, and they're communicating, and they're just happy and excited. Like this, they see this as such a blessing. Or they weren't fine, and this like exacerbated every problem. It was like bring a magnifying glass in, and they just are, I don't know, it's almost like Bud and I watched this show. It's old at this point, Bondi Rescue. Have you ever seen it? Like lifeguards on the beach in Australia.
No, but I've been to Bondi Beach in Australia.
Way. Yeah. Oh, you have to show me some pictures sometime.
Yeah.
But it's so you get this picture, like they have these lifeguards, and they're specialized lifeguards because the beach there is like treacherous. You have parts that are fine to swim in, and other parts where you think you're fine, and then the current sucks you out to sea. Like I feel like that's what this particular season of hard has done for marriages. Like they were kind of thinking, okay, we've got this, we're treading water. Maybe they're not even quite treading water. They're just, like the issues just keep coming up, but they just keep, they're just trying. And then this came in like that current that just sucked them out. And like they just need a lifeline,
Yeah, no, that's a great way to explain it, and it makes a lot of sense. I feel like, yeah, I just feel like that's really an intense situation, and then to be thrown into, like, there's not, like, we saw none of this coming. So right. It is absolutely just like that, like the current just sucking you out, and all of a sudden you're here. I'm gonna go ahead and let Jessica in here in a minute. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you have your eye on it. I'm so proud of you.
Yay, I was good. I got it. I told Tim that I'm not very good at paying attention, and you know that, so I'm gonna have to pay attention. So I was trying my best.
Well, she rocked it.
No, that's okay. Sorry, Tiffany, for interrupting you.
No, you're good.
No, she had a great analogy, just talking about just the state that marriages are, just a lot of like marriages being thrown into upheaval right now, right? It's getting like a current that sucks us out. And so, Tiffany, I'm sorry, we can go ahead with that. So have you seen, you said you've seen that play out in the group that you're in, where you coach other women. You've seen that in women that you've talked to. What, like, how do you bring that, like, how do you go like this? It's a huge picture and all this stuff and they're overwhelmed. Like, how do you bring that back in and kind of narrow in a focus and help guide them and offer them hope?
Yeah, so a couple of things, like specific things are, that we just have to keep in mind, like this is the season, like this is going to end. You just have to, like, you need that lifeline. You need to just like grab hold of a lifeline and hold on until we get through this to the other side. Because on the other side, there's going to be like, just this like, okay, like we can get some space, we can breathe, everybody can, relax, go, chill. But in the meantime, we just need a lifeline. And I feel like Philippians 4 is that lifeline that we need. Like when your marriage is in a crazy hard place, no matter what it is, right? Right now it's this, but honestly, like we all go through seasons where, somebody gets sick or someone loses a job or, there's this, some other unexpected variable that comes in and just knocks your feet out from under you.
Yeah.
And it's important not to make like big decisions in the midst of that,
Yes.
and just kind of table that and find that lifeline. And so, for me, Bud and I, we've been through some wild seasons of crazy. And so this one, and it came and I'm like, hey, cool, I have some like tools. I can just pull these out. We're just going to pull out what we know is it. And so it's really 3 things that I just kind of coach every wife when you're in a hard time, like prayer and gratitude. You've got to like hold on to those. So be praying more than you're talking about what the hard thing is. You're still talking. You're just redirecting who you're talking about it to.
Right.
So,
right. Which isn't always our first reaction, right? That's
right.
not always our first reaction.
Yeah. And it's not that we're not going to talk about it, right? Like
That's right.
hubby and I, we're going to talk about the thing. But first, like I need to be talking about it to God. Like God and I, we have to talk about it sometimes for a long time.
Yeah.
Before I can get to bed.
Yeah.
And like, as, we're taking that to God, he talks about, so in Philippians 4, starting in verse 6, he says, be anxious for nothing. And you're like, sure, right? Yeah. How does that work? But instead, in everything with prayer and supplication and thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And so like he knows for real, there are things we're going to not even just be anxious about, like we're going to worry that thing into the ground. We're going to be imagining, 10 years from now, if the thing plays out in the worst, possible scenario, it takes me like 3 seconds to go from, he said, why are you wearing that, to, oh, I'm fat and ugly and he's going to leave me for a younger woman.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So it's more about, just like not letting my mouth then say something, because he probably meant nothing by that. That was just randomly, he thought, oh, that's interesting. But my mind,
Yeah.
So just, taking the thing to God. So like, that's the first lifeline, is God gives us prayer. Like he is always only ever just a prayer away. Like we're not doing this alone. That thing that is driving you crazy, like you're in, lockdown and the kids are crazy loud. And like, for me, that's no big deal. I'm a homeschool mom. It's always me and the kids, and the kids are always crazy loud and messy and annoying. And, you just kind of, not always annoying, but some days they're annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for him, that's different, right? He's here and he's like, why are they so loud all the time? And so instead of, my mouth wanting to be like, they're just kids and they're just doing their thing and you just need to be patient, I just need to like, and just take that to God and be like, God, you know why he's here right now and that we can't get away from each other. Like, please give us some peace. Help him to have eyes to see his kids in a different light. I don't know, like, the things, and you can do what you need to do. And it's like prayer can be that first lifeline. Like, we just like grab hold of it and don't let go.
Yeah. See, I love that. And well, two things that I love that you said. The first of all, the point of just not making any big decisions during times like this, like how key that is, because I feel like is what our human nature, like we just want to like jump, like just react to our emotions. Everything overtakes us. And so when we're in the middle of something hard, no matter what it is, like a lot of times our first reaction is a big reaction. And so taking that, like not stepping in that, taking that back, and then not only that, but making everything a matter of prayer. Like I love that Spurgeon quote, this like make not just small things, but large things too. Like everything is a matter of prayer. And like it can be easy to forget that, but then once we kind of can create that habit, like you said, it can be that when little kids are driving you crazy or whatever, instead of jumping, like those words that you said are words that I like often say, oh, they're just being like just yeah and pray.
Right.
And not that we don't want to talk about later or whatever too. It's just I'm always trying to remember to pray for God's timing in my words that I'm speaking, because my timing is almost always wrong. Almost always. Yeah, that's great. That is a great lifeline to have. Oh, and the other thing I love that you said was the just having things that you can go back to, because this is with marriage, this is with parenting, this is with our walk with Christ. I mean, that's like a huge thing of mine too, is just having, if we can process through and have things that we can go back to. I mean, we're going to need to, and this is a battle and we're going to continually be fighting. And so having that, knowing this, and having these three things to work back to are so important, because otherwise in the moment, the emotions, right? The words, the everything can just fly and come out.
They do. Yeah. And they like build up. They build up on top of each other throughout the day. And in this time where like we can't get away from each other. And if your marriage is in a healthy place, that might feel amazing. But even then, sometimes you're like, okay, I'm just going to go to the bathroom and close the door for 5 minutes and just talk to God about this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Maybe that's not your safe place, but that's my safe place.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think,
yeah.
It
does. It's my safe place too. One of the things that has helped me too is journaling. And I just, I'll come and get a notebook, and, I can be stubborn and hard-headed. So sometimes what I do is I just, I talk to the Lord, but sometimes I want to talk loud, but I can't. Mm-hmm. So I just write everything down. That's my letter to God, and I get all that stuff out, and then I'm like, I feel better, Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, I feel good. I can do this, and another way that I've been looking at things, especially with everything that's going on, is I heard someone say this, and I was like, that's a great way of looking at it. And he was saying, when storms come, you can drown or you can learn how to swim in the midst of the storm. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, wow, you have to figure out a way of staying afloat, even if you go down, but come up for breath in the midst of it and say, I can't do this, and not just drown with the frustration. And like you said, it was so important was making big decisions when you're feeling, because that's what we do. And a lot of times we're fearful. So fear drives us to make irrational decisions, and then you regret those decisions. So I think that was so great that you pointed that out, Tiffany, because it's key that we understand that we have to take back and not make any decisions during those times until you're really, had renewed your mind, you seek the Lord, you got counsel and all those things, because I've been there where fear drives you to make decisions that God is not telling you to do, and and anger is just driving it, and it's not good. You're not going to be in a good place.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I agree completely.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, goodness. I would say the only exception probably to that would be if abusive situation.
Yes.
So, like, I always want to just add a caveat there that if there is abuse in any way, a big decision right there. You get out. You
That's right.
go to your parents' house or to a pastor's house or to a friend's house, and you take the kids with you and make sure you're in a place that's safe.
That's right. I agree.
Yeah, definitely. Tiffany, I don't know. We can hear you, but is she frozen on your screen?
Yeah, she's frozen.
Okay, you're frozen on my screen too.
Oh, there you are.
There you are.
Good. Awesome. It's like, well, at least you can still hear you. A lot of times, they'll go out and then, yeah, no, that's good. No, I appreciate that too. And I think that that's a very important thing to note for sure. So we've got big decisions and prayer. So our lifeline being prayer, taking it to God first. So then, and we all know, but yet it's hard. And I think it's always a good reminder to remind ourselves the power of prayer, because it can feel like, oh, why is this not going to do anything? It's not really going to matter, whatever. I mean, I don't know how many times that I've gotten stuck there, but it always matters. It always matters. So don't stop praying. Okay. So sorry, I kind of went off on my tangents there, but you know me.
Go on a tangent. No, I mean, we could follow that tangent all day long if you want to, because prayer is really like that. I feel like that is what has saved our marriage more than anything else, has been prayer, because God, I can't change my husband. Like, I want to change my husband. I can't change my husband, but God can change my husband and wants to change my husband just like he wants to change me. And so prayer is the vessel that we can use to work toward that change, not in our time, obviously God's timing, but our prayer, that the fervent, effectual prayer of a righteous woman changes and works so much like that. And you just like hang that on the wall and read it every time you think, oh, I have to pray some more, or, oh, it's just prayer. No, it is powerful.
Yes, absolutely. Definitely.
Yeah, but it's not the only tool. So like the next lifeline I want to tell you is also in Philippians 4. And it's in verse 9 and 19. And he says, and my God shall supply all your needs according to his riches and glory. And so like while we're in a hard place, it's easy to focus on all of the needs that my husband is not meeting. It's easy to get like almost like this like polarized vision of my husband, to in the Love Dare, the 40 days, he talks about that we have these two rooms in our minds for our husband. Like we have this room of appreciation where all of the good things he's done are like cataloged and trophies and medals. He did this and he's great. And I loved that about him. Like when we first started dating, all these things, he makes me laugh and he's so honest and I can trust him. And oh, his eyes are dreamy. And like we could spend time in there appreciating him and like growing that love up. But then we also have this room of depreciation where, we store all of this, like, oh, he's checked out on his phone again instead of helping me with the dishes. Oh, he throws the laundry on like the floor every day, wet towels, like 2 inches from the laundry basket. He never puts the seat down on the toilet, some of the trivial things. And then maybe some of the more harsh things, like he has a temper and he lashes out at me when he gets frustrated, or, he's not very patient with the kids. And so we have a choice which room we visit more often and spend time in. And the longer I'm married, the more I'm tempted to kind of hang out in that depreciation room and be reminded like, oh, he hasn't given me like a passionate kiss in like 3 days and I need that. And like here, we are, and he is the only other adult interaction I have, and he's not talking to me about the things I want to, the ways I need them talked to. And like we can focus on all of these unmet needs and begin to feel like, why am I even married? Why did I marry this man? This isn't the same man I married. It's been 20 years. We're just two different people. I don't feel a lot of love toward him. And like, that's what happens when we hang out in that room. And for everything that we have listed on that wall, for me, it's kind of probably like my schoolroom. So you can't see the other side of my schoolroom. It's like this, floor to ceiling bookcase. Like there are probably volumes of things that my husband has done wrong at this point. Like they're cataloged and categorized. And I could just go pull one out and read through. Like, 10 years ago on the 5th of June, he left the wet towel there, and 100 more times that month, and begin to be so frustrated with all of the needs he's not meeting in my life. And these are small things, but there can also be really big needs that our husbands are not meeting for us. And so God and I, we go back and forth about this. I feel like I was just telling you that a week ago was my plea that, here we are again at this need, and he's not doing this, and I need this. It's important to me. This is my love language. He's not speaking it. What do I do? And so I go back to God's word, and I remind myself that it says that God will supply all my needs. And it's not what I want. I want my husband to supply these needs.
Right.
But the truth is, he can't always. He has his own needs. He is just another human being walking through this life, a sinful human being, a selfish human being, just like I am. And where we both need to be taking our needs in reality to God and saying, God, I need to be heard. I need good conversation, and I need this physical touch, and I need a helper to raise my kids. And right now my husband is struggling to do all of these things. Like right now he's stressed and he's worried and he has all these needs, and I'm struggling to meet his needs, I'm sure. And God promises not just that he'll meet these needs, but this is the promise, and I love it, according to his riches. Okay. So not according to what the level of my need is. But like God, I'm over here like with this little bucket, and here's like, fill it up, God. Here's my need. It's just this little bucket. And he's over there with this giant tub. Like all I have to do is ask. And he will pour in to my little bucket, so much so that it will overflow. And then when I come to my husband, I don't have those needs exactly the same way. I can come to him and say, how can I serve you? How can I love you? What are your needs today? How can I appreciate you? How can I respect you? And so like this lifeline where we're being sucked out, the marriage was already struggling because we were already battling with this feeling of all these needs, God, and what do I do with this? And he can't that, and he isn't this. The lifeline is that we just need to take those needs to God, like every single one of them, and say, maybe I want my husband to do this, but maybe he can't right now. And that didn't catch God off guard.
Right.
God can fill that need. Like if I will just take it, and God can fill it beyond what I could ever ask for or imagine.
Yeah, I love that. Like, so there's two, here we go. Okay. So there's two things there that made me really excited too, because just, talking about how, like with the cup and overflowing, another pastor that we used to listen to, or still do, but in California, he would always talk about how, like when you take your kid to go get like something at the store or whatever, and, like my kids, like a lot of times are like, oh, is this too much? Like we don't want to, maybe this would be too much, maybe whatever. And he's like, we're like the kids that are like, oh, maybe we could have that thing on the, middle shelf or the lower shelf, where God's like up on that top shelf and grabs the thing and, wants to give it to us. And same thing, it just reminded me of that, and how often we will put God in a box and not view him properly, whether it be what he can do, and how powerful he is, or how he wants to bless us. And it may not look the way that we think, but it can be abundant blessing. And the other thing
do we like not even ask him for the thing?
Right.
Like we just sit here that. Like, oh, there are starving children in Africa, and I'm not going to bother God with my like little need for conversation. And he's like, I'm God, like my resources are limitless.
Yes.
You have not because you ask not.
Yep. I love that. That's such an important thing to remember. And the other thing that I love, because I'm always like, looking at things through marriage and parenting, but what a great way to teach our kids too, like what you had just said, because, as the kids get older and I don't know, I've got teenagers here now and conversations happen and maybe there's something that, that they were disappointed in, a way that they've been a need not fulfilled. Then I can show them and direct them to God, the one that will fulfill their show, pray with them and help them to learn this like early on, because I feel like we need that. We need that in all ways, but in marriage, I've always been a hugely passionate about realistic, beautiful, the beauty of marriage, but realistic too. I'd never want my kids to just believe the whole fairy tale ending and nothing is ever hard and whatever, because it's not realistic. And so God gives us these tools, all found in Him and His Word, to help us through these things. And I feel like that's what you said is such a great way too, that we can show the kids and how we're dealing with it and how they're gonna, because I mean, we're families and we disappoint each other and we let each other down and we don't meet expectations. And, if I'm able to speak to them about that with either dad or a sibling or something, then when I let them down, my hopes are that they will do the same thing, So anyways, I thought that was.
And they see it, like they're watching us.
Oh yeah.
And so like we have all of these opportunities to, I don't know, like I feel like my parents growing up, when they would have a problem, like they would just disappear, work through the problem, and then come out. Like we had no idea what did they do?
Okay.
And so like Bud and I try to be, everything doesn't happen in front of them, but sometimes, if they're conversations we can have, like they saw the beginning of that. And later on that night, we always talk about like, what was your best part of today and what was your worst part of today? And let's pray over those things. And we will circle back to, it was really mommy and daddy had an argument about such and such. We were, feeling this and that, and we'll talk through how did we work through that and try to, like take those teachable moments, to try and be like, and this is when you get married. Like, and we're very open about, we started out wrong in marriage, and these are some of the consequences of marrying an unbeliever and marrying someone who had these kinds of addictions. And you want to, be careful of that. And these things, they still come up years later, though God's worked miraculously. And so like, we just take those, times to just live transparently in front of our kids, just not hide the hard parts.
Yep. 100% agree with you. I think there's barely anything that I'm more passionate about than that. No, but I agree, because it's a gift then to, our relationship with the Lord, to our marriage, and to our kids, when we're able to work through and process that. And there's just so much more damage from not, I mean, I had no idea. All I ever saw was conflict, growing up, my parents were divorced. And so I had no idea how we're supposed to navigate anything in a way, let alone a God honoring way. So I think it's really helpful, that perspective, I think. So we've got prayer and that God will supply our needs, right, as our lifelines. Okay, what else? What you got for us, Tiffany?
So then the last one is just to remember to forgive every day. The importance of forgiveness. It's just this big thing, so much so that Jesus talks about it over and over and over. And like, it's also this like complicated, frustrating thing. Like I'm reminded in Matthew 18, right, where Peter's like, well, how many times do I have to forgive? Like the same thing, 7 times? I'll forgive him 7 times. And like, Jesus has this like mic drop moment. No, 7 times 70.
Yeah.
Like you just never stop forgiving. And we kind of just bump up against each other in marriage, like his flesh and my flesh and his sin and my sin. And like we have moments that are amazing and we have moments where I'm like, why? What are we doing here? Like that hurts so bad.
Mm-hmm.
And remembering, like Jesus said, forgive, and he said forgive, and that is how we are showing God's love to him. That's how we're working on our relationship with God, that we are forgiving, like keeping those communication lines clear.
Mm-hmm.
And that it just, for marriage, it just has to be every day.
Yeah.
And it has to be, even if he does the same hurtful thing 7 times 70 in that day,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to forgive him.
Mm-hmm.
With a caveat. So I'm going to add a caveat here also of abuse
Mhm.
and infidelity,
Mm-hmm.
and what you might consider abandonment. So not taking care of his family in the way that God has outlined, for a man to do. So in those cases, now you're still going to forgive. Okay. God doesn't give us an out for forgiving, but the reconciliation piece looks different there.
Yeah.
Okay. You have to rebuild the trust there. If trust can be rebuilt, it has to be both of you to have reconciliation after some of these more serious things.
Mhm.
But I think for most of us, that's not where we're dealing.
Mm-hmm.
Most of us are dealing with, he stayed up too late binge watching something on Netflix. The kids irritated him. He saw me and he bit my head off.
Yeah.
That's where we're working, like right now. Those are the everyday average things that we are having to just be like, and I forgive you.
Mm-hmm.
And we're probably going to talk about that later on when I'm not frustrated.
Well, I think that's a great point too, though, because I don't know, and maybe this is just me, but I feel like sometimes we can view forgiveness as like the bigger, more like impactful, like you need to forgive, and then all those little things, those daily things, can, like you said, add up, pile up, or whatever, and then even without thinking about it, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh no, this is now turned into a much bigger thing, and so. I love the point of every day, because there's things, I mean, we need forgiveness every day for things that we do. So why would we not make it a priority and be intentional in forgiving them every day too, little and big? I think that's a great point and a good reminder.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What's funny is a lot of times I don't realize that I have not forgiven him about something until I start to hear myself like be after him about it. And I'll hear these like red flags, like you always, or you never.
Yep.
And I'm like, does he really always, or have I not forgiven some things here?
Right. Yeah.
Or we'll have, some bigger things, like we are continually working through some hard issues in our marriage. That just, even when God can bring you to a place where you're filled with hope and joy about your marriage, there are still some hard things like that, just, because we're human. And I realized, gosh, the beginning of this year, I realized that my prayer life had gotten really dry and stale. And I'm like, what is going on, God? Like, is there something between you and I? I don't know. And had to spend some time just in prayer and fasting, like to work through to the other side of that. And he showed me I have just been becoming resentful about this repeated issue, like forgiving it so many times, dealing with it so many times. And I just got to a point last year where I just said, I'm done forgiving you about this. Like, I don't know that I decided it intentionally, but I stopped giving him the forgiveness.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then getting to a place of saying, okay, God, but it's been 18 years at this point, like continually all the time. It's not a make or break issue, but it still hurts every time. And like, I need you to make this go away. Can you make this go away? I want to forgive him. I want to forgive him for me and you. I want to forgive him for like my faith walk. But I would also like this to go away. And God's okay with that. He doesn't always answer the way that we think he should. And he's okay with us bringing those big emotions to him and saying, like, this is hard. This is hard to forgive. I didn't realize I wasn't. I'm sorry. And he and I got to the other side of it fine. And then he opened this really cool door to be able to have a conversation with Bud about this thing, and we've had a million conversations about this thing, and they usually go like, I'll bring it up and he's like, shut it down. And I'll bring it up and he's like, quit bringing this up, oh, or I just can't. But this conversation, I think because I had gone into it after a time of prayer and fasting, he was like, I know this is an issue. I don't know how to fix it. What do you want to do about it? And I'm like, what do you mean?
Yeah. What? That's huge. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's so many great points. And this would be a great time for me to say that Tiffany has a great book on prayer and fasting, because it is. It's fantastic. We'll link that. And then also the other resources. She has a lot of resources on her site.
Yeah.
Her site's fantastic, and then her group also. But that being said, like, I think that there's so many, like, how we can be caught off guard when, like, after praying and praying and praying, we're like, whoa, what, God? Like, because that, like, that's not you that said or did anything different than you have before. You've just been praying, and God did his thing, right? It's amazing. That is amazing.
Yeah.
And such a good reminder too of how the resentment can build, and how you may not realize that you're there. Like you said, you didn't intentionally maybe sit there and say, I'm not going to forget. But if we're not in the practice of it, how it can build to that. And then sometimes, like, I'll start, like, sometimes we're like, will you help me to even want to? Because I don't even want to, and even with I shared that on one of the other lives, even with my kids sometimes too. It's like, I knew I had to go ask for forgiveness. I didn't even want to. Like, I was just so, but yeah, for any kind of forgiveness, that, would you help me to want to forgive him again? Would you help me to, have that open heart about that? Because that can be hard, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do want to share, so working through, like, this whole piece of, I don't want to forgive. I didn't realize I wasn't forgiving. Like, I just go through this whole process to forgive, especially when it's things like you have to forgive every day. And so, like, it's a 7-step process, and that is on my site. I'll send you the link so you can share it there. And it's just a free resource you can get, just a checklist that I go through this checklist almost every time, because it's one thing to be like, okay, God, I forgive him. And it's another thing to actually have forgiven him and move on.
Yes. No, 100%. You're absolutely right. No, I love that. And we'll definitely share that. I think that's something that's useful to everybody in every position of where they're at with marriage, like, that's something we need to be practicing. I'm so thankful for you. Thank you for coming on. We thank you for spending time with us and encouraging us, and giving us those tips. And we'll put some resources for everybody down in the comments below this, then on Facebook when we get back in there.
Yeah, and if anybody has questions, or they're like, I have this specific thing and what do I do? Like, just ask anything. And if you're afraid to ask it publicly, you can always just shoot me a direct message, and I love chatting with wives about that.
Awesome. Well, thank you for the encouragement that you are, my friend.
Thank you, Tiffany.
And we will see you soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.